In a sense, it's like the squatter issue. And if they adversely possess the property for a period of 7 years, even though you have a warranty deed that says you're the 100% fee simple owner of the real estate, somebody can adversely possess and take that property from you, and they can file an adverse possession, and they can become the lawful owner of the property.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Steven Silverman.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, flying solo today. My partner, Steven Silverman, is out dealing with some issues on one of our properties, and he'll be back next episode. But really excited with our guest that we have today, and we're going to get started on it real quickly. Just wanted to let you guys know in advance that besides the guest that we've got today, which is we've got other great guests on our podcast at the www.investfloridashow.com website. We encourage you to go there and check it out, see who else we have. Also, if you've not had the opportunity to give us a review, we would appreciate the time for you to go to whether it be iTunes or the Google store to go in there and just tell people what you think about the show. It helps us with guests. You know, it's always a challenge for us to get guests that we know you guys want to hear, and it helps us when potential guests look at the reviews and see what you guys think about us and what you think about the show. Plus, it gives us some feedback. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, we'd greatly appreciate. We don't make money off this show. It's not monetized in any way. It's really as a tool, meant as a tool for investors throughout the state of Florida and outside of the state of Florida to hone their craft. And we hope that you guys get something out of it. And that's the only thing we ask. If you haven't, to go ahead and give us a review. Today we have with us Rob Walton. Rob is a trust and estate attorney in Tampa, Florida. He was born in Florida Panhandle, and he grew up in Fairhope, Alabama, and graduated from Stetson University College of Law, where he earned his Juris Doctorate degree. He earned his master's in taxation law from the University of Alabama School of Law, and Rob is active in the Hillsborough County Bar Association and regularly provides pro bono legal services to those in need, not real estate investors. People in need, right? Okay. So
Exactly.
Rob practices law in Tampa and loves fishing. I have to say also that Rob's a friend of mine, and we're really happy to have him on the show today. Rob, welcome to the Invest Florida Show.
Hey, thank you, Eric. Happy to be here.
And I love you put the fishing part in there because I know you wanted to have that little look at me moment because you just had a big, you did a Florida thing and caught a big fish. What
I caught a big catch, had a
catfish?
Yep. Yeah. A tarpon.
Sailcat? Oh, a tarpon.
A tarpon. Had a trip down to Inglewood and had the privilege to fish off Boca Grande and landed a big one. So
do you remember how many pounds it was?
It's about 110.
110 pounds. Holy cow. So that was the first time
that number is going to grow, though, next time I'm on your show. So.
Of course. Of course. But, we've done some fishing before, too. I mean, this is the Florida podcast, so you got to talk a little fishing before you get into the meat and potatoes of the episode, right?
You got it.
Yeah. No, we went out and I think we did some snook and caught some snook and trout and redfish in the bay.
Excellent snook fishing here in Tampa Bay and, throughout Florida.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Rob, you helped me with an issue that I had on an investment property in Tampa, and it's something that a lot of investors don't necessarily understand. And I'll give the listeners a little bit of background. Had bought an investment property, and there's scams that are going on. Of course, seems like, all right, I don't want to get hate mail from the folks in Miami, But it seems like they're pretty good at perfecting scams, and eventually this starts there in Miami and works its way up through the system. And we certainly had that here in my property, that people drive around and see an empty house. My property was an estate. It was an estate issue, and they see the house is empty, and they'll turn around and they'll rent it out. And there's no lease. I mean, there's nobody to sign a lease with because the owner of the property is deceased. That was the case with this one.
Yeah, with your permission, I'll go into some of the details on that one. So that was such an interesting case because it involved what at first glance looked like a landlord-tenant issue, but actually was not landlord-tenant law. It was covered under an entirely different chapter of the Florida statutes, Chapter 82, the wrongful detainer laws. And in that particular case, you had somebody who died who had owned property, so a decedent owned real estate here in Florida, and it was unoccupied. And scammers allegedly rented the property to somebody who believed that they were in lease with the correct owners of the property, but actually the people they were in a lease with had no ownership with the property. They were just scammers.
Sure.
And so what at first glance looked like a landlord-tenant case actually turned out to be an unlawful detainer case, which is a very important tool for your listeners to know that exists, because that comes up quite often. And really the best way to think of an unlawful detainer case is think of it as you've got somebody in the property who's essentially never had a lease. They just moved in to the property either because the property was vacant or
squatters.
They're squatters.
Yeah.
You got it. And so there's a different procedure for getting squatters out of a property, and that procedure is what's known as an unlawful detainer action. And actually, it's a very, very quick process in the grand scheme of things in the law.
If you handle it right.
Sometimes a landlord-tenant eviction case can be a nightmare that never ends. It can be
well. This is the issue. This is the issue that what happens, that a lot of folks immediately try to go to eviction. And that's going to take longer to get them out at that point.
It takes longer, and in some cases, it may not even be the right kind of case. So we talked about fishing earlier. There's certain types of bait or certain types of fishing lure lines that you have to use to catch a certain kind of fish. It's the same thing in the law. If you use the wrong tool, you're not going to get the result that you want or that you need. And so sometimes what happens in those cases is that people will file it as an eviction action thinking that, this person's a holdover tenant, when in fact there's never a leasehold. There was never a lease, not anything in writing, not anything that was agreed to, even orally. So in Florida we even have verbal lease agreements, so you can have a month-to-month lease if there's nothing reduced to writing. So if you don't have it in writing, there was never a lease, there was never any kind of agreement, you don't even know who these people are that are living in this property that
squatters
you own, then the most likely result is that actually you need an unlawful detainer action. And what an unlawful detainer action is it's basically setting forth to the court, to the judge, to say, look, judge, we've never had a lease with this person, don't know who this person is, or even if you do know who they are, there's never been a lease. They've never paid any monies. You never agreed to have them stay there, and they're unlawfully possessing the property. They're squatters, and you're asking that the judge issue a writ of possession, which then the sheriff executes and physically goes to the property. A sheriff's deputy, if you recall in your case, you had met a sheriff's deputy, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
At the property, and they, by order of the court, they're required to essentially kick that person out.
Yeah, and I don't really, with them, I'm not really sure that it was malicious on their part. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't remember. When the sheriff went there, they were already skedaddling. They had moving truck, and they were in the process of leaving. But they made the comment that they were paying rent to somebody that was down in Miami who they believed to be the owner of the property, and that they were on the short end of the stick because they had paid some money. Now, whether that's true or that's not true, I don't really know. It was a family. I did feel somewhat guilty about it, and the sheriff just said, hey,
Well, you mentioned, what does the scam look like? In some cases, it's a very sophisticated scam. In that case, I recall that they had the alleged landlord had claimed that their last name was the last name of the decedent.
Correct.
So they acted as though they were the family members of this person who had passed away. And so it's hard to say. We never saw whether or not they actually were true victims or they were trying to commit a fraud even on the court by, faking a lease and saying, no, we have this lease agreement, we have this deal with this family member. We just never got to it there. But the fraud it can be very sophisticated. So this is just as important for property owners as anybody who's ever going to rent a property to know that, you might think you've got a lease locked up and that you're, rightfully in possession of this property and you're paying your rents, and then all of a sudden you get this unlawful detainer action filed against you, and you come to find out that person you've been paying rent to is not even nowhere to be found, not the owner.
Yeah, I think the primary takeaway from this is that if you are in an unlawful detainer type of situation, it's actually pretty quick to get them out. But you want to make sure you go down the right path. Going down the path of trying to file eviction and there's no lease involved is going to actually, and more likely than not, delay the process and have to make you back up and start over again. So make sure you understand what the situation is before you try to do something yourself and go down the wrong path that's going to end up costing you more money because you can't get possession of your property in a timely fashion and re-tenant that property. Anything else you want to add before we got one more thing we wanted to talk about here? Was there anything else on unlawful detainer?
Yeah, just to second that I know for my clients that are property owners, property managers, that I'm not always brought in on each and every landlord-tenant eviction case, and so I think it's an ounce of prevention can really go a long way in just properly diagnosing what the actual issue is, even if it's not the attorney who's helping to prosecute the case.
Let's talk about the other item that you and I want to discuss in terms of kind of quirky things that happen with land. Adverse possession.
Yeah. When they teach you about this in law school, everybody's eyes get big and, the jaws drop because it's hard to believe that this law, this concept even exists. And the best way that I can ask your listeners to think about it is how to, one of the methods for settling boundary disputes. So if you think about like a farmer, for example, that is using another field and he's doing that for, he or she is doing that for years and years and years, it's maybe easier to conceptualize. But basically what adverse possession is it's legal stealing of real property.
Okay.
It's a way that you can actually become the owner of property without ever having been the owner before. And so in the state of Florida, there are a couple of statutes on the books on it, but we divvy it up between whether you have color of title or not, or no color of title. So what color of title, you can think of it as a deed or some kind of legal instrument that is purportedly giving the person title to the property. So it could be a judgment, could be some kind of a court order, could be a deed, but they think that they're actually the owner of this property. But in fact, they're not the owner of the property. And so there are several elements to an adverse possession case, but basically it's a case in which you're openly, exclusively, and notoriously adversely possessing, meaning you're literally in possession of the property. You've built a fence.
Okay, so I was going to say, give us some examples. You're talking about building a fence over on your, that drifts 6 feet into your neighbor's yard.
It could be a case like that, or it could be something even, but kind of the classic example that they'd give us in law school is they say, if you ever inherit property that's out in the middle of nowhere, make sure you visit it every now and again, because there could be somebody living there. So it's kind of like, in a sense, it's like the squatter issue that we mentioned earlier. It's similar, but it's more, because what is happening is it's a 7-year shot clock, and if they adversely possess the property for a period of 7 years, even though you have a warranty deed, not a special warranty deed, you have a warranty deed that says you're the 100%,
you're 100%
fee simple owner of the real estate. Somebody can adversely possess and take that property from you, and they can file an adverse possession, and they can become the lawful owner of the property.
Oh my gosh! I mean, that's obviously on land. That's a pretty big thing, because people might be paying attention. But what would 7 years is one trigger? What's another trigger? Do you have to build a structure on it? Is it a structure in 7 years, or how does that work?
No color of title. So if it's true adverse possession, no color of title, meaning you never had a deed, never had any kind of judgment or order that says you're the owner, then you also have to pay the taxes. And what's interesting about that is that Uncle Sam may be getting paid twice, right? The true owner may actually be paying the taxes on the property, but if it's without color of title, adverse possession case, one of the requirements is that during that 7 years of successive possession of the property, so the shot clock begins if you left the property for after 2 years and didn't intend to come back, and 5 years later you came back and began the possession again, you don't get credit for those first 2 years. The shot clock begins all over, but you have to pay the taxes for that 7-year period of time.
So what does it mean to take possession? Does it mean that you have a mobile home on it? You've got to pitch a tent on it? You just put your fence line on it? Like, there has to be something besides just the paying taxes on it, right?
So very, very good point. Very good point for discussion. The acts and conduct have to be such that it would put what we call in the law a reasonably prudent person on notice that the person who's claiming to be the owner of the property is the owner of the property. So certainly pitching a tent, if that's a tent that's going to last 7 years, but more than that, you'll see somebody will actually literally move onto the property. You can think of the early homesteaders.
Sure.
Think about how they came. They literally cut the trees. They, cut the wood, built their log cabin. If you had somebody do something like that today, where they're literally moving onto the land, anybody in the world who drove or flew by or saw them would know, hey, I thought that was somebody else's property. No, I think it must be now this person's property. That's a potential adverse possession case.
Huh. And, I think it's just thinking out loud here. It seems to me like the way this could really happen. I mean, you see down in Fort Myers where some of those developments down there, they just go on and on and on, and there's nobody really living there. There might be one home. Deltona, I think, did a lot of those developments down there. There might be one home and then 40 lots that are vacant, and it's developed. Well, the neighbor could essentially think, and it might be deviant behavior, and it might not be. It might be a situation where the person says, I believe to own this lot or a piece of this lot, and they build their fence out there, and they're paying the taxes on it, and then all of a sudden 10 years later somebody comes and wants to build on that property.
That's such an excellent point. Your 10-year time frame, the statute is 7 years. So that's the time frame that you have to adversely possess. But
minimum. Right.
Yeah.
10 years is, person's going on believing they own it.
You got it.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really important in these types of cases is what happens if somebody has given permission. If somebody has given permission, then it may be a death pill to the adverse possession claim. It might knock it out entirely, because it cannot be the type of case. And you can think of, like in North Florida, some of the hunting properties. Hey, I'd like to
I'll let you use it.
Yeah, I'll let you use it. Let me go onto your land. I'm going to hunt deer. Or, hey, can I put my deer stand, on your vacant land that nobody's using? And if the true owner of the property says, absolutely, you can put your deer stand on my property, then if the person who then 7 years later or 8 years later tries to say, hey, I paid all the taxes, I've done everything, give me the property, give me clean bill of health or clean title to the property, a defense that true owner could raise is to say, look, I gave him permission. It wasn't adverse. It wasn't actually hostile. And that's one of the requirements of any adverse possession claim is that
it's hostile. That's crazy,
hostile.
Man. Yeah, but I get it. You could easily see how, like going back to the Fort Myers example again, that John, who owns the vacant lot, says to Bill, John or Bill, go ahead and you can keep your boat over there. Before you know it, Bill's built a
dock.
And he's built a metal shed to store his boat in there. And time goes by, and Bill's paying. He starts paying the taxes. He figures he starts getting conflated in his mind the agreement that they had between them.
What I find to be very interesting is the counties aren't going around giving you a notice to say, hey, somebody else is also paying the taxes.
So you mean the government's not looking out for you? That's shocking.
So they're gonna say, well,
pay twice.
You want to pay us twice? We'll take it.
Oh man. Well, I think the moral of this story is you go by and visit your property every once in a while and make sure that there's no funny business going on. Obviously when you get a survey, walk your property and make sure that
that's especially true, because one of the elements, or one of the, what do you have to prove? Do you have to actually prove in an adverse possession claim that the actual owner had actual knowledge that the property was being adversely possessed? And the answer is no. You don't have to prove that the true owner knew and just was lazy or didn't care enough to actually assert their property rights. You don't have to prove that. So
that's a little frightening. Well, again, the moral of the story is go walk your property. You guys are sitting on land. We've had some folks that have come to us and asked us about doing some land speculation, land banking, buying land in the way of progress. And these are guys, you need to pay attention to what's going on there and just, walk your property and understand. And so that's two pretty good, sort of unusual cases that certainly one of them presented themselves with me. And then of course you're working on some of these other ones, but adverse possession and unlawful detainer. Hopefully that's something that we shine some light on for you about how those things work. Rob, you do trust and real estate work, right? But you don't do closings like that. You leave that to the title companies.
I leave it to the title companies. They're so efficient. They have their systems in place, and they're good at what they do. So,
but you help people with evictions, and you'll help people with land trusts and family trust and family planning. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about sort of your services?
Especially like helping with the planning. Getting it set up correctly on the front end. So help with Florida land trusts, help with even when things aren't set up correctly, or you've got a case like the unlawful detainer case, or even landlord tenant eviction type cases, but especially focused on the planning. I can also help with the litigation if needed.
Awesome. And that's what you did with me. I mean, we had to go after the folks that had unlawfully detained my property, and I had you help me on that. Why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you if they have further questions or maybe want to use your services?
So I'm here in Tampa, Florida. Phone number is 813-434-1960. I'm extension 1.
Awesome. Hey, Rob, as always, we definitely appreciate your input. Glad to have you on the show. We're going to have to get you back out on the water and see if we can't pull in one of those big tarpon again.
Looking forward to it, Eric. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Thank you for your time. And that was Rob Walton talking about adverse possession and unlawful detainer, some quirky parts of Florida law that could really have an adverse impact on your real estate ownership and real estate investing. Hopefully you guys got something good out of that. I mean, for me, I didn't know. I'd learned about unlawful detainer when I actually had somebody squatting in my house, and that was an experience for me. Trying to get them rooted out. It's a pretty quick process, but obviously going through Rob, it was a lot quicker than if I had done what I had originally, my intuition had said to go and file for an eviction, and that would have probably delayed at least a month the time that I was able to get that person out of my property. But guys, as always, we appreciate the time you spend with us each and every episode. If you want to hear other great speakers like Rob, again, www.investfloridashow.com. You can listen to 4.5 years now of almost 5 years of great guests that we've had on the show. So we hope that you will go back to the website and check out to see some of our other guests. Until next time, hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Steven Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.